All right, my friends, welcome once again to the next episode here, the Red Delta Project podcast, live feed Q&A here on the RDP YouTube channel. We are simplifying fitness by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise. As always, I'm your host, Matt Schifferly, and today's episode is sponsored by my latest book. Yes, Be Fit, Live Free is now available on both Amazon in, of course, paperback and the Kindle formats, as well as PDF in the new RDP PDF store. I've got the entirety of the RDP library available for you now on PDF. It's been a long time coming. It's been a very challenging thing to produce. And now I have my own PDF store, including some unique bundles like grind style calisthenics bundle, fitness fundamentals bundle, weight loss bundle. All these books are bundled up to save you some money and give you more of a comprehensive view on what you need to do in order to accomplish these goals. So welcome everybody. Today's episode is, I know, a little bit different. It is a Sunday. It is in the morning. I wasn't able to get to my computer yesterday or even last week for that matter. And it was a little bit of a helter-skelter sort of thing. It's kind of crazy going on right now in my life. Last week, I had a lot of friends and family in town for my 6th degree black belt testing. And I really wanted to be able to get this episode out at that time, but it was not in the cards. So I'm getting these episodes out as I can and doing these live streams, trying to stay somewhat consistent with the schedule. But with the holidays and everything going on, it might be a little bit hit or miss. So make sure that you are staying up to date on the RDP Instagram channel for the updates on when these are coming out and what they will be entailing. So we're talking about troubleshooting muscle building. I've been getting some more information or a request these days on why am I not building muscle? I've been working hard. I've been doing this program or whatnot. I've been eating very well, and I'm still not building muscle. And it's such a big topic, in fact, that next month, many of you, if you've been following me for a while, know that the way that I do my YouTube videos in the month of December is kind of like a bit of an advent calendar, if you will. It's a countdown to Christmas or the end of the year, where every day from December 1st to December 24th, I do a short little video every single day with a comprehensive theme. And the goal is to give you a big, broad piece of information, if you will, that's going to collectively help you hit the next year off and running. And next month is all about videos purely about focusing on helping you build muscle, getting more effective in your workouts, your diet and lifestyle, and your mindset. So make sure you're subscribed to the RDP YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of those, because those videos are coming out every single day throughout the entire month of December. And that's what we're talking about today too, because a lot of times it's not so much about building muscle as it is just overcoming some of the hurdles that are holding you back. Because building muscle is a little bit of a weird thing in fitness. On one hand, it is by far one of the most challenging and difficult things you can possibly undertake in your fitness career. One of my mentors, Dan John, who's one of the most prolific and best strength coaches on the planet, was at a seminar one time, and I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, building muscle and also conversely losing weight. He's like, these are like the hardest things you can ever do. They are extremely difficult to make happen. And at the same time, you'll also have these individuals who are like, oh, I don't know, I just do push-ups and pull-ups and I got jacked. Like, I don't know why people are having such a hard time with it. Like, it's easy for me. And so we have to look at this and say, well, okay, is it easier for them because of genetics or because maybe they're on steroids? You know, we can't discount that possibility. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that building muscle just requires a lot of pieces to be in place. And for some people, a lot of these influences, like I talk about in my book, another shameless plug there, a lot of us just have these influences in place automatically for whatever reason. They're just naturally there for a number of influences that they had in their life. And other people have so many influences going against them that they're having trouble no matter how hard they work and no matter what they try to do. So in today's episode, I want to highlight some of the most important principles and essential elements in having the best chance of building muscle so that you can look at some of these variables and be like, okay, I've got this, and oh, no, wait, that one here, that's not really shored up, or I could probably get a little tighter in that area. And that's the area to go into. Because the first few lessons that I want to highlight that we've been talking about here is one, is recognizing that building muscle is a lot harder than we'll often see portrayed in social media and stuff is key. Because a lot of times you see these individuals on social media or people talking about building muscle and podcasts and things like this. And it's almost like there's this idea out there that is kind of akin to learning to play a sport or losing weight. Like it's just another goal, it's another objective, and it's kind of on the same level playing field. And it totally is not, because building muscle is by far, in my opinion, the most difficult thing you can possibly do with your body. It is way easier to lose weight and keep it off. It is way easier to become more proficient at a sport or a skill or something. If I took you and said, okay, we're going to get you doing more push-ups and more pull-ups, and we're going to be able to have you drop 10 pounds of fat in the next several months, I would bet money that could probably happen. But if you're like, I'm going to build 10 pounds of muscle this year, I'm like, I'm not taking that bet. There's no way. The average person will always struggle to build muscle. Some people will write into me and they'll be like, but Matt, I'm a hard gainer. I'm like, yeah, everybody is. Like, unless you're a genetic freak or you, again, have that foundation built up for whatever reason, 99.9% of people out there are just going to have a really, really hard time building muscle. But it doesn't need to necessarily be that hard, because a lot of us are just working upstream. We're working against a lot of influences that are relatively easy to fix. And that's what we're talking about today. I'm also going to be answering questions here, talking about a couple of things. Adam's coming on. Jeff Stockdale saying, how was belt test go? Very good. Thank you very much. I did pass. I was a little disappointed in my braking, but nobody has a perfect test. There's always going to be challenges. And Master Dave saying, hello, Matt, I noticed you don't tend to mention the knee push-up variation much. Is there a specific reason for that? Absolutely. So knee push-ups are a very common progression or regression, depending on the direction you're going in, when it comes to your basic push chain or push-up series. And I don't do a whole lot of knee push-ups for the simple reason that I think you're going to have better ergonomics and adjustability if you just use various heights for your hands that your hands are on for progressions where you're either on plyo boxes and you're just getting lower to the ground, suspension straps or gymnastics rings. A lot of times that people will use those, and I'll just have them keep backing up, and so they're angling their body down. The knee push-up, because the lever is so much shorter, because the pivot point is so much different, it's a little bit harder to get the ergonomics quite right of where your hands are. A lot of times when I see people do knee push-ups, their hands are higher on their chest and their shoulders are hunching up, or it's too low. A lot of times the resistance is a little bit different, where they have much less resistance at the top and more resistance at the bottom. The strength curve isn't quite as good for that. So for these reasons and more, I just tell people use a graded height of your hands with keeping a full straight body if you can. Sometimes I will use knee push-ups as like a drop set or something during a set of push-ups. If someone's doing push-ups and we're really trying to burn them out, they're like, oh man, I'm really burnt out. It's like, okay, to the knees, 5 more, let's go. Because it's a quick and easy regression that you can just literally drop your knees to and do. So for that reason, I'll use it sometimes. But yeah, for the most part, I do not use the knee push-up. I don't think it's the smarter and more effective way to go about it. Alex N saying, I'm about to do my workouts now. Is it okay to leave the stream for it? Absolutely. Remember, my friends, I always post the audio of these on the RDP podcast. So you can listen to it at a later date at your leisure through your podcast directory. Also on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, because this is the RDP YouTube channel, you can go onto the podcast playlist and just watch or listen to this in the background at the same time as well. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like that. But Master Dave coming on, say another question, please. I've heard holding positions like yielding isometrics will help improve stability plus muscle tension. Yes. What's the advantage of doing GSC stability phase also? Yeah. So let's jump right into this a little bit, because this dovetails into what I'm talking about. So the first reason why a lot of people have trouble building muscle is because they're lacking in one of the 4 areas of neuromuscular proficiency. And I talk about neuromuscular proficiency in my grind style calisthenics book, Overcoming Isometrics. And I kind of touch on a few of those aspects as well in other books like my Smart Bodyweight Training and so on. And the thing is, if we're going to effectively work our muscles, because that's really all we need to do. If we want to stimulate hypertrophy, we need to be able to make our muscles just overall work harder over time. And there's really only 2 things to that. There's how much tension is in the muscle and how long can you have the tension there for, or your muscular work capacity, as I like to say. So building muscle is simply about challenging your time and tension. That's all there is to it. And you can do that any way that you can use any exercises you like, any programming you like. You can use free weights and bands, and machines, blah, 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 blah. You can do anything like, as long as you're making your muscles work better, harder, and stronger over time, you're good. However, a lot of times we have trouble doing that because A, we have trouble engaging the muscle to begin with. And that right there, if you have poor neuromuscular engagement, you're basically screwed. There is nothing you do that will ever work if you have trouble engaging a muscle. And these days, especially with our sedentary habits and we're always hunched up over our phones and everything, we are deconditioning our neuromuscular activation like crazy these days. So we practice tension exercises in grind style approach to first and foremost always engage the muscles more and better. That's why we always start a grind style workout with that. And so isometrics are a very good way to do that, because when you are using an isometric, it is a lot easier to engage the muscle. It's a lot easier to wake it up, and it's a lot easier to get the synergy of that activation working as well. So you could have great bicep activation, but terrible lat activation. But if you do an isometric row, for example, or I'll just have someone lay down on the floor and drive their elbows into the floor, that's a great way to practice using those muscles. And that's all there is to it. And yielding isometrics can be also a good way to go about that. I made a video last week about doing this with weights, a grind style approach with weights. And that's what I did for the tension phase. I just had a cable machine and I just pulled back on the row. Wasn't a whole lot of weight, doesn't need to be a lot of weight. And I was just holding there for a few seconds and then just releasing. And that was a good way to go about that. So it's very good for that. You touched on stability as well. So that's a second phase. You're only as strong as you are stable. You can only have your muscular work capacity challenged to the degree of your stability. If you have instability in your ability to engage your muscles well, or you're using exercises that really have a lot of instability inherently in them, then your ability to effectively push your muscular work capacity is going to be severely handicapped. And even though you're working very hard, you're just never really reaching the upper limits of what your muscles are capable of. This is why in the grind style calisthenics approach, I don't do a lot of skill work. Like I'm not going to give you stuff that's like really hard skill wise. I don't want hard skill. I don't want to challenge your skill. I want to challenge your muscles. So the more that your skill is being challenged with an exercise, the harder it is for you to work your muscular work capacity. So that's why the best exercises are typically really simple, basic, boring techniques, nothing fancy. If you came to me and you're like, would you do muscle ups or would you just do pull-ups and dips? I'd be like, dude, pull-ups and dips every time, because the muscle up takes a lot more of a skill. And the hardest part of a muscle up is the transition. So you're effectively challenging your ability to do the transition, but your actual pulling muscles and your pushing muscles may be relatively fresh when you, quote, go to failure on a set of muscle ups. So that's why we have shifting work in the grind style approach, which is all about having that activation that you just worked with in order to improve your stability. And stability is so important that if you go to any kind of strength training workshop, any type of, I don't care what it is, calisthenics, kettlebells, powerlifting, bands, go to any type of strength training workshop, 90% of the information there is going to be all about getting you more stable. Breathe this way, stand this way, brace, clench, pack your shoulders, engage this muscle, make sure your arm is straight, make sure this is locked out, keep your back up, keep your chest up, all of that is purely stability training. I've done a lot of the seminars out there for under Dragon Door and stuff. And you look back on it, it's like, what did you work on all the time? It's like, everything was about stability. We didn't learn anything about how to become more stable. Why? Because when you become more stable, strength and all that just happens. It just comes naturally. You're like, oh, I'm stronger. Oh, hey, I can push my muscles more. I can get more reps. Yeah, exactly. When you're more stable, you get everything much more dialed in and better. You're also a lot safer too, because if there's anything that's going to erode your ability to grow muscle, it's injury. Even not even injury, discomfort. We've all experienced this where we get underneath a heavy bar or something, and there's that little voice in the back of our head going like, I don't know about this. This kind of feels a little sketchy. Your nervous system is going to naturally bug out before you really push your muscles hard because it's got your health and preservation first and foremost in mind. That's why when I got into calisthenics from the weightlifting, I would have found it a lot easier to build muscle and strength because the exercises are way less stressful on the mind. I can push myself with some weighted dips a lot easier than I can with a bench press because I'm never going to get stuck under a bar. So I can really, really drive the hell out of my muscles, provided I have the stability and the activation, of course, but it's a lot easier for me to do that. So we want those exercises that give us a degree of mental and emotional comfort. The things that make you feel a little, I'm not so sure about this, those are typically not the best exercises for helping you build some muscle. Go with the things that make you feel strong and comfortable doing, and you're going to be able to push harder, and you're going to be able to use more resistance, and you're going to be able to do more weight as well. All right, a couple of other questions here. I'd love to see if I can get these to pop up, but I don't think I can. Shoot, I'm using the YouTube live stream instead of the StreamYard right here, just trying to try this out a little bit here. But bear with me a little bit here, folks. So we've got Anthony coming on saying, hey, Matt, my max push-ups are about 15, 17 reps. I did push-ups EMOM 10 minutes, 7 reps for each minute to hear your opinion about this. So again, when we're trying to build muscle, this is another big mistake that a lot of people make, is they get too caught up in the programming. They get too caught up in doing things right. It's like, well, this guy says to do 5 reps or sets. And this guy over here says that's way too many. I got to do 2 sets. And this other guy over here says volume is key. So I've got to do 15 sets or whatever. It's like all over it. We're trying to get it right. But remember, a fundamental approach, like I talk about in my latest book, observes that your ability to get success from your diet and exercise habits does not come from getting the right program down. It's not how many sets you do. It's not how many macronutrients and protein and carbs and calories you're eating and all these other sorts of things. That stuff is kind of guesswork about what you should do. Instead, we need to have a clear identification about what your objective is in your workouts. Because so much of the advice out there in our fitness culture is all based on how much work you should do. Oh, your workout should be this long, and you should do these many exercises, and you should do these many sets and reps, and you should eat this much food, and you should get these many grams of protein and all these sorts of things. No matter what number you come up with, you're guessing with this advice. You are guessing. It's going to be better or worse guessing depending on the information you're coming off of, but you're always going to be guessing because your ability to get the result that you want does not come from how much work you do. It comes from how well you can achieve a fundamental objective. And when it comes to the objective you want in your workouts, particularly for building muscle and hypertrophy, we're talking about being able to work our neuromuscular work capacity. In other words, how hard can you work your muscles and how long can you work your muscles until they're starting to burn out? And you can work them 100 different ways from here till Tuesday. You can do high volume and low volume and slow reps and fast reps and free weights and bands and machines and your big range of motion and short range of motion. You can go with short rest periods and long rest periods. You can do all these things 100 different ways. As long as you're progressively making your muscles work harder over time, you're going to be getting that objective. Okay, so when we have a perception in our mind of, I got to do things, quote, the right way, and it's like, okay, this guy says do 3 sets. Well, how do I know what your ability to do to thoroughly work your muscles in 3 sets is? You could do 3 sets and barely be getting warmed up. You could be doing 3 sets and be like, okay, I did those 3 sets, and their muscles are like, oh, great, yeah, awesome, great. All right, now we're ready to go. Now we're ready to rock and roll. Give us the heavy stuff. And you're like, no, you're done. And I'm like, but no, wait, hold. Like, I have so much energy. I have so much more juice in the tank, if you will, to use up. You're not even close to achieving your objective of really maxing out your muscles in 3 sets. But on the other hand, you could have a program that says you got to do 8 sets for each body part. And like, okay, and I've trained guys like this where they just really turn the screws to the muscle. And in 2-3 sets, they're shot. They are done. They go so heavy and they grind it out like crazy. And in 2 or 3, they're done. It's like, so now they're just kind of doing junk volume. And it's going to be different for everybody. So that's why we want to have an objective-based approach with our workouts. You want to work your muscles hard as far as your proficiency and your strength goes. And you want to work the work capacity. Now, in the grind style approach, we separate these things out. We have a strength or proficiency phase, which you're going heavy, you're keeping the reps low, and you're not really pushing to failure very much. You're keeping some reps in the tank. This is where you're really challenging your strength and your proficiency of how hard you can work your muscles, how much you can make your muscles contract. And so the approach with grind style is do this as much as you can or as much as you want for the day. 2 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets. Wait, great. What you got, you can do more. Keep doing more. Go for it. But once you start to notice you're starting to falter a little bit and your ability to work your muscles is getting compromised, and again, that could happen in 2 sets, that could happen in 10 sets, then you shift into more of the quote finisher phase or the capacity phase. And then you're using exercises and you're just burning the mother living hell out of the muscles. And that's the opposite, where you go with something that is relatively modest in resistance and higher in repetitions, and you just go until you're peeling yourself off the floor. You can barely lift your arms kind of thing. And so that's a way to really challenge your work capacity. But the point I'm trying to make is when we get locked into what's this program, or how do you think about this, or 3 sets of 7 or 5 by 5 and everything, the moment you get into a static locked program, you're limiting yourself. That's like saying drive your car at only 1 speed, 45 miles an hour. We effectively and safely drive our vehicles because we can adjust our speed. So it can be doing more, doing less, faster, slower, taking more time, taking less time as our circumstances warrant and whatever we can do. Same thing should be done with our workouts. Get into the gym and just do however much work is necessary or what you can do for the day to effectively work your muscles, working your muscle contraction and their work capacity. And if you do that in 5 sets, you do it in 5 sets. If it takes 20 sets, it takes 20 sets. But by having that objective, you're now making your workouts much more consistent about being effective rather than, quote, doing it right. Because a lot of times when we're doing it right, then we've made the goal of our workout to do the program, not to actually stimulate the results that we're after. I hope that makes some sense there. More on that coming. I got a couple of new little books coming out. My adaptive training program will be coming out fairly soon, hopefully before Christmas. But that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people making is they're trying to do things the right way. And good luck trying to figure out what the right way is. Because you're always going to have different, like, well, Mike Metzer, is high intensity, low volume guy, and this other guy over here was all about volume and stuff. Yeah, that's because fundamentally they're still doing the same thing. You build muscle by progressively working your muscular work capacity over time. That's how you build it. You can do that any way that you like, any program you like. But if that's not your objective, you can also do any program and method and tool out there and not really achieve that because you're not focusing on that sort of thing. So Alexa is coming on saying, Matt, question, how do you improve work capacity? Is cardio enough specific work is needed? Very good question here, because when we're talking about work capacity, particularly for hypertrophy, What we're specifically talking about is the work capacity of the muscle tissue itself. This is extremely important to recognize because when we are doing exercise of any kind, we've got a lot of variables and systems at play. We got a lot of things that are working. We got our cardio system, we've got our mental, and even to some degree, our emotional resiliency, right? A lot of times we stop doing things just because mentally we're kind of breaking down. So when we are doing our exercise, if something else is a limiting factor, that's going to fail first and become a rate limiting step. And again, hold you back from being able to challenge your neuromuscular work capacity. So a common example, let's say, is we're doing our exercise and we're holding our breath like this. We're really tight. We're really like even just doing this right now. Like I'm turning red in the face. I'm sure I've got veins popping out of my forehead and everything. I'm getting tired because of how I'm breathing. My muscles are still fine. My muscles are fresh as a daisy right now, but I'm getting tired because of how I'm breathing. So I'm hitting more against the limitation or the work capacity of my cardiovascular system. So if that's the limiting factor, I'm still not going to have much of a chance of challenging my actual muscles themselves. It's always something else. Again, with the mental limitation too. A little funny story. I was training a guy one time and he started cranking out dips, kind of warming up. And he just looked at me and was like, how many should I do? And I looked at the log and I was like, give me 12. And immediately he just jumped off and he was like, what are you talking about? 12 dips? Are you insane? I'm 52, dude. And I was like, yeah. So, and he's like, why do you think I can do 12 dips? Like, I'm fit, like, this is ridiculous. How could you possibly? It's like, because you did 10 last week and you said it was easy. So I'm giving you 12. Like, this is the progression. But mentally, he instantly just was like, I can't do it. I can't, it's impossible for me. There's no way. And then, so what I did was a little Jedi mind trick. The next time I met him, and I was like, all right, you're going to do as many dips as you can in 3 minutes. Just break it up however you like. I give you full control. Go. And he got 17. He got 17 dips before he had to stop. And it's little things like that can be a good way to break away from mental limitations that we have. But the point is that we want to have the work capacity of the actual muscle tissue itself breaking down. We want the muscle to be the limiting factor, not our cardio system, not our mental capacity, not how well we can push ourselves, not our stability, not all of these other things. We don't want those to be the limiting factor, because if they are, they're going to make it all the more difficult in order to fully challenge the actual work capacity of the muscle itself. I guess the way I want to say is we want to make it so that the muscle is the weak link in the exercise. So if you're doing exercises and you're like, man, this is really kicking my butt cardio wise, but I'm not really feeling it that much in my back, we got to change something up, because you want your muscles screaming bloody murder for these workouts. That is the objective that we are after. Ninja Rose saying, hey, Matt, how much credit do you give mountain biking for your insane legs? Thank you very much. What percentage roughly do you think is responsible in terms of muscle growth? Just a ballpark figure if you can. So I think my mountain biking probably doesn't have all that much to do with it from the perspective of actually working the muscles itself. Instead, it's more of that mental fortitude that I was talking about. I would always have much harder workouts and be able to drive myself harder during race seasons. Because to this day, mountain bike racing has always been the hardest thing I've ever put my body through. It's literally like the races I would do would usually be like a 20K or so. They'd take about an hour or so. So it's literally like, I want you sprinting out of the gate and riding as hard as you possibly can for an hour. That's what a mountain bike race is. And mentally, it's impossible to do. If you looked at the course and thought about the course, your mindset, you'd give up right away. I've done that mistake several times where, we had a 20K course and it was 4 laps, and I would do 1 lap and I only 3 more to go. And I'd immediately be like, oh God, I can't do this for another 3 laps. I'm going way too hard, which is why you break it up in your mind. You're like, I am sprinting to that corner. And then you turn the corner and you're like, okay, I'm sprinting this section. And you get through that section. Okay, now I'm going as fast as I can up this hill, and that's how you break it up and you just chunk it out. And so that ability to be comfortable with that level of discomfort would always carry over into my strength training. So then when my muscles are screaming and my breath is up a little bit and I'm really uncomfortable, but mentally I'd be like, yeah, but you pushed twice as hard in a bike race 2 days ago. So keep going, dude. Like, you're not even close to your end. That's what I would say was the biggest thing that mountain biking gave me, was the mental toughness, not so much the physical stuff, not so much the physical abilities and things like that, because that's, everybody has hardworking legs on a mountain bike. That, and also just being able to engage my calves very well, and to a certain degree, poor muscular activation was probably to credit there as well, because I've always had very poor glute and hamstring activation. So my calves grew bigger to compensate. It's not a good thing. I got bigger calves because the rest of my legs were kind of shot to hell, right? And that's the weird thing about legs, is if you have good sized calves or decent looking calves, everybody thinks your legs are awesome, even if they're really not. My legs are usually not anything to write home about. They're good, but they're certainly not like Tom Platz or anything like that. But hey, you got good calves. Everybody thinks you got great legs. Proud Misfit saying, hey, Matt, I appreciate your promotion of single arm row. Absolutely love that exercise. I have made it my main pulling movement and has really built up my back. Do you suggest I continue with it? If it's not broken, yeah, don't fix it, dude. That's another big mistake that people make, is building muscle is A, again, very difficult, and B, usually a lot slower than we think it is. What was it, Coach Summer, I think? Somer, I think his name was. He's like, don't even bother measuring a rate of muscle growth any faster than like once a year. Because it's not going to happen like weight loss, where you can see it on a week by week or month by month basis. It's going to be too slow unless you're starting off. Like when I started off building muscle and strength with just some basic strength training after my mountain bike career in college, I was going from literally no strength training whatsoever to full on strength training. And I put on like 12 pounds of muscle in 6 months, which for a skinny dude like me, that was a pretty noticeable change, and that's because my body was just right for it. It was fertile. It's always easier when you're just starting out, when you're a beginner. But you take somebody who's been strength training like me for the past 20, 30 years, good luck even putting on a single pound of muscle in any decent time frame. So when we're looking at this, it's got to happen faster and stuff, we tend to change things up way too much. So that's why when you're doing an exercise, you find an exercise like the one arm row, for example. Again, don't worry about the tool. This is dumbbell row, this is cable row, band, single arm row on suspension, or if you've got like a bar, you could do like Australian pull-ups on and stuff. Great. It's all one arm rows, same thing. Just do whatever you feel is more comfortable and the strongest for you, whatever you prefer. But I mean, there's a reason it's been a bodybuilding staple for years. But when you're doing these things and you're like, okay, I'm feeling the muscle working, I'm making progress in my strength and my proficiency, I'm getting a good pump, I can really push the muscle. So when it's screaming bloody murder and I'm like, come on, 5 more, you bastard, let's go. That's a good exercise for that. Bent over rows with a barbell, you could feel like, I'm starting to lose the integrity in my lower back. Oh, my hips are starting to sag back. I'm starting to use a lot more body English to get it. Things are starting to fall apart too easy. Again, mentally, you start thinking, I'm not so sure about keeping this safe and good technical integrity. But single arm rows, oh man, you could just crank that sucker and be at your very limit. It's great. So yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If you're making progress and you're going along and things are going great, don't change it. The whole idea of, I got to change things up, I got to keep the muscles guessing and stuff, that's largely a product of magazines and people who are like, okay, it's another month, you need a new program, you need to buy this new program, you need to buy this new equipment, you need to buy more new things. that's not nearly the case. If you're on an exercise and you're still making progress with it, as far as your numbers go, you're still getting stronger, still feels really good and powerful and stable and stuff, dude, you do it for the rest of the year. If you're like, I've been doing this for 8 months and it's still doing great. I'm like, keep going by all means. You just need to make the muscle work hard. That's it. So if we're having more success with that with an exercise, dude, keep going. Absolutely. It's a fantastic technique. Don't change it. Usually, when it comes to changing things up, you change things up out of necessity, not novelty. So if you've got something that's working great for you, keep on going. Let's see if I get some more here. The text feed on the YouTube thing is a little bit different, so I'm getting used to it. Pardon if I miss anybody here, but Anthony Bong is saying, hey, Matt, this December, are you going to upload micro workout every day like a few years ago? All right. As I was saying earlier, you might have missed that, come in a little late. I am doing the daily videos, but it's not so much a micro workout. It's going to be muscle building tips. It's all about building muscle. I will, now that you mention it, you know what? I'll put a micro workout in the description if I don't have a micro workout, because some of the videos will certainly be a micro workout, but I'll definitely have workouts that you can test the ideas in, because I'm going to have technique tips, mindset tips, nutrition, lifestyle. We're going to be getting a real holistic approach to this whole building muscle thing for the daily December videos. So yeah, I'll have little workouts for you in the descriptions there that you can play with. Oops. I did it again. Shoot. I get all kerfuddled. My bad here. All right. Esley is saying, hey, Matt, I do weightlifting and calisthenics, but does bulking really work? I did it in the past, gained some weight, but I feel it didn't work for me. I'm skinny, but my goal is to build more muscle. Absolutely, yes. So bulking, is a technique, a strategy and stuff. And I've never been very much on board with this sort of thing, largely because it, for most people, just results in them getting fatter and then getting leaner. It often doesn't do a whole heck of a lot for guys putting on muscle for several reasons. And one is, again, we're talking about diet, and this is, of course, very important. You definitely want to eat enough. But a lot of people out there, got to eat more, got to eat more, got to eat more. The fact of the matter is, fundamentally, the way food works is that eating more will help, but only to a certain point. If you're eating enough, eating more is not going to do you any good whatsoever. And that's with everything. It won't make you healthier. It won't make you live longer. It won't make you run faster. It won't make you stronger. It won't make you build. We have this weird concept in the world of hypertrophy where we like, okay, yeah, if you eat too much, you get fatter. Great. Okay, good. Yeah. Too many nutrient dense foods. Yeah, you get fatter. It's like, oh no, wait, we dreamed up this idea of I want to build muscle. Okay, because my brain is thinking I want to build biceps, suddenly the entire laws of nutritional physics radically change. It's like, no, they don't. Food works the same for everybody in all circumstances, regardless of what your goals are. You don't have different principles and foundational rules on how food impacts the human body just because you want to make gains. Do you need to eat enough? Absolutely. Do you need to eat more? Who the hell knows? Some people don't eat enough. And there was a story on Stronger by Science the other day about a guy who ate more and he got jacked. But when they asked him, like, what were you eating before? He's like, here was my diet before. I'd wake up in the morning and I would get one of those, instant ramen packets, and had like the 2 bricks, 2 little, they're almost like acoustic tile, right? I'd have one of those for breakfast. And then I would go to school and I would get the school lunch, whatever it was. And then I would come home and I'd have the other one. So basically the man was living on the school lunch and 1 packet of ramen a day. And that was all he was ever eating. Then people came to him and they're like, have dinner, dude. Like, have real food. Have something with some meat, substance to it. And boom, he got jacked for, in real quick time. He was like, 19-year-old kid working his heart out and everything. And people look at them like, yeah, see, that proves that eat big, get big. It's like, no, it proves don't have a crappy diet. If you already have a good diet, trying to maximize and optimize it isn't going to do you any more good. You're already working with a full tank. So when it comes to this bulking idea, for one, it's a temporary scenario. Sometimes, yes, people do eat more and they do have better workouts and they do put on muscle. But in those scenarios, to that I say, well, then you should be doing that all the time. Why are you doing this in a 6-week cycle or 4-month cycle or whatever it is? Why would you ever stop that? If you're eating more and getting better results, that's not bulking. That's just finally eating a decent diet. That's eating enough. That's not bulking. When we bulk, we're overfeeding ourselves in an attempt to try and just make sure that we're eating enough. And yeah, I totally get that. Especially if you're in a competitive arena and simple body mass is an important thing, like if you played football or something, linebacker, then yeah, getting bigger in any way, shape, or form is certainly going to help you. Some people, they just like that comfort of saying, yeah, I know I'm putting on some fat, but I know I'm eating enough to have the muscle that I need. It's like, okay, that's great too. But don't convince yourself that you've got to get fatter to build muscle. That's just two different fundamental rules. You're playing two different games, and one of which is going to cost you a lot of time and energy. So it's always a case of absolutely you want to eat enough. Again, cover it in this book, cover it in all my books. Eat to satisfy. The whole point of a healthy diet is to satisfy your appetites. Nutritional support, hunger, metabolic support, and hedonic support. That's what a healthy diet does. Your diet's not healthy because you don't eat bread. Okay, your diet's not healthy because you eat a certain number of calories or get a certain amount of protein. Again, that's like me saying you should do 5 sets of push-ups. I'm just guessing. Like, how the hell do I know what you should be doing? There's no way I can know what you should be doing. Know what your objective is. Your objective is get really good nutritional support, satisfy your hunger, satisfy your metabolic support so you're not getting tired and run down all the time, and satisfying your hedonic support so you don't have cravings and all that stuff. If you're doing that, your diet is as good as it's going to get. Eating more is not going to help you. But a lot of times, again, we like to think of, I can speed it up. I can force muscle growth by eating more. No, you can't. That's like me dumping a load of concrete in the middle of an empty lot and expecting a building to just spring up. If there's no instructions that require the use of the material, it's not going to help you. And that's not new age. That's not science. That's just simply how food works, people. That is how food works. And we have to recognize it doesn't change or work differently because we want to build muscle. Edna is asking, Matt, did you win in any of these bike races? I did win a few. I never won any of the road series. I was a much better mountain biker than I was a road biker. I also had a much better mountain bike than a road bike. My road bike was, well, actually kind of a POS, but the best I ever did in road was second place. And that was a story in itself. It was a sprint to the finish and it was uphill. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go like halfway up the hill and then I'm going to sprint. And the buddy I was racing with, it was me, my buddy, and this other guy. And the second we started the hill, he just took off. And I was like, I can't sprint that distance, dude. Like, dear Lord. So he went on one and I was like, oh, now I've got to sprint just to beat this other guy. And yeah, that was another one of those, like, the world is starting to go dark and you get tunnel vision at the end kind of thing. Like, oh my gosh, that was absolutely everything I had. So that was the best I did road, was I got second place that once. And I got third in the East Coast Championships, which I was proud of. But yeah, I won a couple of mountain bike races. There were a few that often led to really good stories. It's funny, every time I won a race, it was like a really interesting story behind it. Like one time my derailleur broke. And the whole course was you rode up a mountain, went across the mountain, and then down the mountain. And I was in the lead when we went across, and then my derailleur broke, which means I couldn't shift gears. So I had to let gravity take me all the way down to the finish line and basically laid off the brakes as little as humanly possible. And that was the only way I stood a chance, but I still ended up winning. It was like just pure cuts going all the way down. Those were fun races. Oh, man. So Alan Lost in Canada is saying, hey, Matt, just received Be Fit, Live Free. Thank you very much for the support. Looking forward to reading it on Christmas break. What is your opinion on studies that indicate the optimal volume of sets per week for muscle growth? Yeah, very good question. So there's one out there that I almost chuckle at. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? There was one that was like the optimal number of sets per group muscle group for growth, and the range was so big. I think it was something like between 8 and 20 sets per muscle group per week or something. I mean, basically the range was so big that I looked at it and I'm like, show me a workout program that's not gonna fit that. Like, give me anybody in the gym. Like, how many sets do you do per week per muscle group? 12. Okay, 16. Okay, 20, 18. Like everybody does. The range was so big, it was like it was pointless to really say, because unless you were an extremely low or extremely high volume kind of guy, you were going to fit in that range. So it's like, oh, that didn't really do a whole lot of good because it was just such a big range. Everybody fits in there anyway. And a lot of times when we look at these volume studies too, remember that when you get these studies, like, okay, we've got these individuals and we change this one variable, and the individuals who had more of this variable or less of this variable or whatever built more muscle. Keep in mind that they're looking at that one variable and seeing if that is a determining factor in muscle growth, if it's an influence. So a lot of times when people are looking at volume, they're like, okay, a little bit more volume typically builds more muscle. Great, okay. So then people jump on the volume bandwagon and they're like, oh, more volume, German volume training. You got to do all this stuff. Oh, volume, 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 volume. And it's like, no, it didn't mean that volume is, or higher volume is key. It just means that volume is a variable, that you're not going to have the same result if you have one set versus 20. That it just is a variable, but it's usually a variable because it also influences other things like intensity and how much you're pushing your muscles into a high state of fatigue and technique and stability and all these other sorts of things. So when it comes to building muscle, if there's anything that we want to take away from a lot of the research out there, it's that we can't really look at one thing. And that's another big mistake that people make when it comes to trying to build muscle, is they're trying to optimize one single influence or a very narrow influence. How much weight is on the bar, how much volume they're doing, what's their protein intake like, what's their quote optimal workout formula. Like, what if I did legs on Wednesday and arms on Tuesday, and then in the third, full moon with Sagittarius rising, I would reverse it, but only for 6 days, and then I would dude, you're going way too complicated with this. You're trying to science your way out of it, and just blast the hell out of your muscles, dude. Just get whatever factors you involve in your workouts and your diets and stuff, whatever allows you to make your muscles just work harder, that's what you want to go with, basically. And so a lot of times when we're looking at volume and stuff, it's like, okay, great. Yeah, volume's good. But remember, volume and intensity are kind of teeter-tottering. So you get these guys out there, it's like, oh yeah, I've got this high volume program. And I'm like, yeah, but you're working out with really, really light loads and you're not really pushing yourself until the very end. Not to mention the fact that your workout now takes 2.5 hours. Like, let's load up some extra resistance on this thing and just blast the hell out of it in 20 minutes. Let's get it done quicker like that. So don't forget, sometimes we have a lot of volume to compensate for a lack of intensity. And sometimes we have a lot of intensity to compensate for a lack of volume. And you can probably just say, well, I like the volume. Okay, great. Or I like the intensity. Okay, fine. But remember that both are always important. If you are pursuing volume and your intensity is just going lower and lower and lower, you may be actually just kind of running in place. You're not really going forward. Same thing with a lot of intensity. The guys doing high reps of squats in the gym, and it's 3 repetitions. They're trying to maximize it, but they're only getting like literally 30 seconds of actual work on the muscle. So we want to have a holistic view of what's going on. Yes, volume is important. Absolutely. Intensity is important. Food is important. Rest is important. Mindset's important. All of it's important. But when you get really tunnel vision and say, that's the one thing that matters, ignore everything else, that's when you've got one influence going towards your goals and all the others are potentially working against you, which is probably the biggest reason why people struggle with building muscle. Barney Jordan saying, hey, Matt, can you say some more about cardio? I do separate cardio sessions, 45 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. I find it's great for blood flow, Mood regulation, absolutely. I do wonder, however, if it limits muscle gains. So, as I was saying earlier, right? Basically, anything that allows your muscles to work harder is going to be a step in the right direction. Anything that's going to inhibit your ability to work your muscles hard is probably going to hurt. Now, can cardio do that? Absolutely. If I'm running my tail off and doing bike riding, and then it's like, okay, time for my workout and the gym, and I'm going to do some weighted dips, and I get on the up there, and my body's just like, oh, dude, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't have much to go on here. It's like, of course, that's how it hurts. It hurts because it impedes the workout itself. It's taking resources away from your ability to push yourself in the gym for your hypertrophy and your recovery and putting it towards something else. But if you have enough recovery and sleep and food, and you're not pushing yourself to full exhaustion and driving yourself into the ground with the cardio, then no, it shouldn't really hurt you. In fact, if anything, it should help. Like I was saying earlier, during those bike races, when it would really jack up my mental toughness and my ability to push myself, my workouts were amazing that time. I built more muscle when I was racing than when I wasn't during the winter, just because I was able to push myself harder. So it's always a pros and cons. The cardio is going to give you pros towards building muscle, and it can also inhibit you if you're just taking away resources a bit much. So be mindful of that sort of thing and maybe cut back a little bit. Remember, don't feel like you need to exhaust yourself on those cardio sessions. You don't need to be crawling out of the gym, especially some of these things that you're going after, blood flow, mood regulation. Yeah, sure. You don't need to be driving yourself into the ground with cardio. If anything, if you go and you're doing a cardio session, and sometimes I'll get out on a bike ride and it's just a casual bike ride, an hour, 2 hours out here in Colorado, not really pushing myself, stop and get a drink and watch the view, that sort of thing. And then the next day I'm like, man, I feel like $1,000,000. I feel amazing. And then I just destroy myself in, a pull-up workout, because it's like, I feel so good from the bike ride that I just had a great pull chain workout. So it can help or it can hurt, but be mindful of it and regulate accordingly, is basically what I'm saying. Ninja Bro saying that, Matt, I know you don't track your workouts anymore, but out of pure curiosity, what do your recent workouts look like? No, I still track my workout log, my adaptive training workout log that I have on the website, the PDFs and stuff. I still do tracking. I don't have a regular workout program anymore, but I still track it. And that's what that workout log allows you to do, is not necessarily having a very strict workout program, but you can still track things. It gives you structured flexibility. So yeah, of course. But yeah, pretty much these days, a lot of attention focusing on push, pull, squat. That's where things are. My workouts are, of course, in the grind style format. So I always start off with a tension phase, stability phase, strength and proficiency, and then a finishing move. And it's based on what I can do, what I can work, what I can focus on for the day, what feels good. Like today, my push chain is feeling pretty good and strong. So I'm going to go down to the gym here in my complex. I'm going to give myself a good push chain workout. So I'll start off with some just simple basic pushing tension exercises, some stability exercises, probably maybe some weighted dips, and then some flies and some triceps to finish things off. Oh, very good. Oh, shoot, I keep doing that. Sorry, my friends. Adam saying, what did Convic Conditioning teach you the most? Basically, the biggest lesson that I got from Convic Conditioning was that it's possible. It's possible to thoroughly challenge your muscles with bodyweight training. That was the catalyst for exploring that whole idea, because before that, like a lot of other people, I just figured, well, bodyweight training is always going to be very light and very limited as far as your ability to thoroughly work your muscles. And Convic Conditioning was just simply a way of saying, nope, you can really work your muscles pretty hard with this stuff. You just got to know kind of how to do it. And that was probably the biggest lesson that really changed my life. Adam is coming on saying, the more I read the books, all of them, thank you, I realize how complete the system really is. Thank you. For Convic Conditioning, yeah, especially CMAS. Every time someone picks up Convic Conditioning and they're like, okay, but I got questions about the programming. I got questions about this, and Paul Waite says this, but I think I should do that. And read CMAS. CMAS really, it should have been almost included with Convic Conditioning, not even Convic Conditioning 2 or the explosive one, Convic Conditioning 3. Convic Conditioning and CMAS really should go together. And again, CMAS is, again, about using that for the purpose of building muscle. The 10 commandments in that are gold, that everybody should understand those things in order for building muscle. And you can still get those 10 commandments, I think, on the Dragon Door website too. And Jonas Zygos, sorry, man, I'm butchering the name, saying, hey, Matt, been a while since I've been able to join a live. Well, I'm glad you could today. I know it's a different time. What is the opinion on slow reps while trying to build muscle? So again, yeah, like slow reps, fast reps, they both have their advantages. And you're going to get zealots out there saying one is better than the other, but fundamentally, you're really not doing anything different between the two of them, because generally what you're doing with modifying the speed is just how much time it takes you to do a rep. Remember, fundamentally, your muscles only know time and tension. So if you're doing 5 slow reps over 30 seconds or 20 fast reps over 30 seconds, fundamentally, you're basically still doing the same thing. Is there a little difference? Some momentum, some explosiveness, some power, tension is a little, yeah, here and there and stuff. But ultimately, for most people, it's not going to matter. Basically, it's just time and tension. And the speed alters how many reps you do for a given amount of time. So it's a good way to explore things. I always say going faster is a great way to challenge yourself and kind of wake up the muscle to some new things. But same thing with going slower. It's not one is better than the other. It's not like one is going to have big advantages over the other either. Lots of research shows that if you're going faster or slower, as long as you're just, again, working the muscle to a good state of fatigue and challenging the strength, you're still just going to end up with the same result either way, because again, fundamentally, you're not doing anything different with the speed. I usually give people slow repetitions when I want them to have more control over what they're doing. Some people will come into the gym and they just habitually go fast. I'll be like, all right, let's go, push-ups. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, whoa, slow down here. You're not using much range. Your technique is all over the place. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, what? How? Okay, hold on, slow down. Like, I want you 30 seconds for 5 reps kind of stuff. And that really kind of, it shocks their system a little bit, because they're dialing in a lot of things that they were using fast reps for to compensate for. But on the other hand, I've also had people where I'm like, okay, push-ups, and they're like, and they're going real slow. And I'm like, I want you to blast those suckers out like a Marine in boot camp. And it's another way to kind of mentally floss, just like, and that's going to wake things up as well. So speed is a very good thing. It's basically what I'm saying. Don't get caught up in people like, oh, slow is best. No, it's not. Fast is best. No, it's not. That's like saying a hammer is better than a screwdriver. They're different tools. Use them for the sake of variety and to shore up your technique and your ability to master the techniques that you're doing. Oh, messages reacted. Let me see if I missed anything here. Let's see. S. Lee, oh, it's good to see you. I do weightlift. Oh, no, I got that one. Sorry. My bad. I think I got everybody. I want to make sure I get everything. But yeah, keep in mind, folks, again, promotions on things. New book out, Be Fit, Live Free. Links are down below in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, because I'm going to be coming out with daily videos throughout the first major part of December 1st through the 24th. New video every single day about tips and tricks to help you just basically hit the ground running for 2024 if building muscle is of importance to you. That's going to be coming out, so make sure you're checking out that. And lots of new stuff coming, and lots of new exciting things as well. But I will bid you all adieu, my friends. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving if you're here in the States and you practice the holiday, or Black Friday and things like that. And if you're not here in the States, I hope you're having a great time and training hard and getting what you want. I will see you next week, and I'll try like crazy to be on the usual time and place for next week, which is 2:30 Mountain Standard Time here in Denver, Colorado, next Saturday for the next edition. I'll talk to you then, folks. Till then, be fit and live free.